Welcome to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. I'm Rebecca Monet, CEO and Chief Scientist at Zoracle Profiles. I'm here with my co-host, community advocate, speaker, author, and entrepreneur, Tracy Kawa. So, Tracy, today's guest is Dominique Main. She's the president of HireNetix and a true franchise industry veteran. Looking at her and how young she is, you wouldn't even believe that, but she's been around a while.
Thank you, Rebecca.
In fact, Dominique has been in the world of franchising since 2006. She has deep experience in franchise development and operations. She's the former founder and CEO of BrightFran, where she worked closely with franchisors to help them scale the right way. And along the journey, she identified one of the biggest challenges facing franchising today. Simply put, franchisors can't grow if franchisees can't hire. Now, as the president of HireNetix, Dominique is leading the charge on solving the people problem in franchising through AI-driven hiring technology built specifically for franchisors and multi-unit franchise operators. So I'm so glad you're here to talk about this topic. I think it is a timely topic. So thank you for joining us today, Dominique.
Thank you so much for having me, ladies.
So you and I go back a little ways. In fact, we share a mentor. So I only know you in the world of franchising, right? I want to know who you were pre-franchising. Were you an industrious child? Did you have ambitions to be a business owner? Tell us about pre-franchising who you were.
Well, I was always a hustler from a very young age, entrepreneurial. I did all of the usual things like lemonade stands and babysitting. I'm the oldest of four kids. My parents were not very, they're very hardworking, but not very well off. And so I made a vow, those inner vows we make, that I was going to, from a young age, that I was going to, as quickly as I could, gain financial independence, that I was going to master the art of being comfortable financially. So that was a motivator for me from a very young age. I did everything you can imagine. I raced and sold goats. I like literally anything that would help me to
Goats.
reach that goal. Yes, goats, little tiny pygmy goats.
How cute.
They were very
Interesting. Were
sweet.
you raised on a farm?
We had 5 acres. Yes. So I would use my
Wow.
babysitting money. I volunteered in an animal rescue, and then they gave me some other overflow of critters. And then I used my babysitting money to kind of create a little business there.
How
Interesting.
fun.
Yeah.
It was great fun, very wholesome. It kept me away from boys when I was, of that age.
Oh man, I
My
need
parents
someone
were
like
happy.
that. I need something like that for my granddaughters. I have one that's very boy crazy.
Horses are great for that, Rebecca.
That's what I hear, but they're also
Mm.
very expensive.
Yes. Yes, they are.
Funny. Okay, so there was this industrious kind of subtle entrepreneur inside you. You had parents that were hard working. At what point were you introduced to franchising?
So I married young at the age of 19. I moved from California up to Oregon and did different jobs, but I was always really interested in fitness and holistic health. My mom has always been very passionate about holistic health. So I ended up applying for a job at the local athletic club in a unit that they had within that was actually a franchise. It was a women's weight loss concept. And I was like, I love nutrition. I love to help people. I'm going to apply for this role and ended up being hired. And that was my first job in franchising in 2006.
Nice. So, what did you do for that company and how did that propel you forward in franchise?
I started off as a wellness consultant. Less than a year into that role, our franchisee decided to buy out the franchisor and became the franchisor, which is how my wild ride into the franchisor side began. So I was hired to manage that center and then the other center that we owned that were franchise units. And then I was brought in to be in charge of operations. So official title, VP of operations at I think at that point, 28 years old, and had 30 locations that I was responsible for across the country. So I would travel for their training and whatever else they needed.
Crazy. So
Yeah.
you went from basically helping run a single location to helping 30 different locations and providing tools and resources and whatever you needed to do to get them to grow also. So
Yes.
I find it interesting how you went from here, right? Kind of that mindset, I'm here to do my job and be a nutrition coach or help people get healthier to, okay, let's take over the world kind of thing. Was there any kind of shock through that whole thing, or were you able to effortlessly make that mind shift?
Oh my goodness. I know that was it was a quantum leap, right? So I called in all the help that I could. I had, my own panic attacks throughout that, but I really wanted it, Rebecca. I really wanted it. So I actually at that point, and money was still tight at that point. I spent $1,000 out of my own pocket for a business coach
Hmm.
because I was
Wow.
bound and determined that I was not going to fail at this job.
Wow.
Interesting.
I
I,
So,
would,
I almost sold my car to pay for it. I just knew that I needed that extra support to get there, and it worked.
it's
so
interesting because I don't think ever until I was probably 50 years old, I would have considered, you know what, I should probably pay for a coach to help me. I can you imagine, Tracy, and if I had done that at
yeah,
28, I mean, how
it's
you knew you needed to gather knowledge and wisdom, and you needed to get that fast to make that happen. So let's continue on that path. Um, Now you've been in the world of franchising 20 years and you've likely seen a lot, right? Helping a franchisor in development and sales, you've helped in the operational side and training side, the support side, you've done it kind of all. At what point did you have an aha that said, franchisees need help with hiring? What was that moment like?
One of the defining moments of my career in franchising was after I had been tasked with those 30 locations that we had now taken on as the franchisor, the new baby franchisor. I had a location. We were bringing in new products that had been successful for us. There were some remodeling happening. So franchisees were investing, they were bringing on new staff and new programs. Of course, that takes an investment. And one of our franchisees, and she was very gung ho about jumping into all of it. Right about the time, the critical moment of that cash going out, her husband lost his job.
Ouch.
Yes, and within the next 6 months to a year, unfortunately, took his own life, partially due to financial stress. And I can't put into words, Rebecca, how that impacted me
mm,
because their lives are in our hands. There's no question about it. And a lot of times, as a franchise, I think we forget that when people invest their life savings or whatever it may be, it's a big deal to that one and how important it is. The industry has thrown around the term responsible franchising a lot in the last 5 years.
Mhm.
Responsible franchising to me is that we take it that seriously, that again, people's lives are in our hands.
wow. Impacting people's lives, and it's literal. It's absolutely literal. So, how does your company help solve the problems that come up in franchise that, make things better for franchisors?
There were two primary reasons, Tracy, that I decided to join HireNetix. And one is that the product itself is solving one of the two primary issues for franchisees. So in part of my career, I sold hundreds of franchises. And the two top objections I would receive from people are, where is the revenue going to come from? So that's a sales and marketing thing. And then where are my people going to come from? Where's that team going to come from? And the story out there is it's impossible to build good staff. There's lots of turnover. You can't, everything is understaffed. And we do see that out there in the marketplace. You might go to a coffee shop and there be a line out the door and you have to get to your appointment so you run. And then that business is losing business, right? That's everyone's concern. What HireNetix does is we solve that problem of staffing a location well by using conversational AI to screen and schedule job candidates. And what that does is gives the business an advantage to connect faster with that top talent and to do it in a way that's welcoming instead of the more traditional hiring approach is more of a gatekeeper approach of giving people a lot of hoops to jump through before they can connect. This gives a tremendous competitive advantage to the franchisees who are utilizing it.
So true. I'm really glad you highlighted, Dominique, these two big issues that every franchise development person, franchisor has to address when helping a prospective franchisee through their due diligence process. That where am I going to get my customers, my clients, and how am I going to have, find my staff that's going to help me do that? So you mentioned something that I'm wondering if we could dig a little deeper into, and that is the struggle that a franchisee might have in attracting employees. Sorry, I'm so used to saying franchisees, employees. And you also mentioned this thing about turnover and retention and all of that. So the tool that you're talking about now, how does it address and solve the problem around retention and turnover and um, satisfaction of that employee?
Mhm.
Yes, so in the last 30 days, I have mystery shopped 40 different franchisor brands hiring process. And the best practice out there right now is to use an ATS, an applicant tracking system,
Mhm.
which is a series of web forms that then populate into a larger system. And it's very friendly to HR departments. It's very friendly to operations because they're collecting all the data they need to ensure compliance and make sure that this person is a fit. Who it's not friendly to are those employees, those potential employees. So what HireNetix does is gives a welcoming, easy to use interface. And I'll show you the difference that makes is Chipotle, for example, by implementing this technology, reduced their hiring time from 12 days down to four
Wow.
because they made it easy for the job candidate who was qualified to connect with a operator for an interview.
That's amazing.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I spent 10 years as a career coach, and I'll tell you the horror stories of number one, the applicant tracking system. Um, if somebody doesn't have like words or skills worded a specific way, you can be the best candidate for a job, but just because you don't have certain words in your resume, you may never even get noticed.
Yes, that's very much a thing right now, Tracy. And there was just an article published, I believe it was the New York Times, that was talking about how applicants are actually gaming that system now by
Yep,
putting
Yes.
instructions to AI in white font into
yep.
their resumes to tell the AI, pick me. And it's working for them. And there's mixed response to that because some employers are like, oh, that lacks integrity. But you have to ask, like, does it really though? Because this is the game you ask them to play. They're just playing it the best they can.
Wow.
So true. So it reduces the time. It makes things more friendly, where the employee doesn't have to go through hoops, fiery hoops, right?
Yes.
And it obviously gets all of us to a point much quicker. Um, so share with me this whole process of AI. I know AI can be intimidating to some people. Can you explain how that all works?
Yes. So in our system, and I'll actually back up to bigger AI because that's something that I've dedicated a lot of my career to the last couple of years, is learning and understanding how we can use that, because AI is a terrible master, but it's actually a great servant. It's an excellent aid. It's an excellent support. So when we use AI, I'll tell you, one of my pet peeves is customer service today. When you need something and you pick up the phone to call and you're in this awful queue, and then you wait forever on hold for the thing, and then the person comes on, is not
Yeah.
properly trained, so they can't actually help you. So they put you on hold again to get you the next person. So what's
Hmm.
cool about the use of AI and improving our world is that now companies are starting to use AI to more quickly get people answers and then get them to the right people. We can share our knowledge with that bot, and then it can easily communicate it, or more easily communicate it, to the people that need that information. So similarly, HireNetix uses conversational AI to chat with the employee, to get them excited about the opportunity, to ask them pertinent questions, and then connect them with a human. So it helps to that middle part that used to be very cumbersome in the sense of forms and then waiting to be scheduled for an interview. It does the whole thing. It brings that process down to 5 minutes or less. Can't even be 2 minutes. So much more user friendly, so much more intelligent, such a stronger connection to that brand.
It makes the whole process so much more efficient.
Yeah,
Yes.
for sure. I was thinking, even, we're a single unit versus multi-unit, and how much time our franchisees spend recruiting, interviewing, training, and then if they don't, put the right person in the right seat, so to speak. So tell me about the scalability. I would think multi-unit franchisees would really benefit from this tool.
Yes. Anyone who has more than one location is going to benefit most of all, because it is a matter of multiplication. So the statistics show that operating managers spend 5 to 15, or can save 5 to 15 hours a week on hiring by the smart implementation of this type of AI technology. And
Yeah.
5 to 15 hours a week, as you can imagine, is huge for somebody's quality of life. And then you start multiplying that by multiple locations, and your organization has just implemented a game changer.
Crazy.
So what fascinates me is that um, you've taken a system, a process that's so lengthy, and you've condensed it. Like, I don't want to say that you found a shortcut, because it's not a shortcut. It actually goes through the process, but so much faster. And I'm thinking about some of the conversations that we had before the show where, there were obstacles in the way and challenges, both in your personal and professional life, and that you were always able to find a way to make things more efficient for yourself, for the system. Can you speak to that a little bit? And where does that skill base come from?
That skill base, Tracy, goes back to my parents, who were hustlers themselves, as far as like hard workers, problem solvers. There was never anything that we couldn't ultimately solve. My dad invented a part for Motorola, and he really taught me that problem solving mindset. Myself and all my siblings have it. And it's like that intellectual curiosity that helps you to get
Mm.
from point A to point B, that there are no unsolvable problems. But like most of us, I've also encountered a lot of challenges in my life that have pushed me to also develop like that mental toughness and that attitude of let's keep going. And I have some great mentors in that, but I also I have Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl is on my
Oh,
bookshelf, and I'll pick it up and
yeah.
read it whenever I need to remind myself that it's in my head. How I decide to move forward in my life, what I create, it's about my mindset. The other person I really love, and book that I love on that, is David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me.
Oh, yeah,
And
sure.
that man's been through everything. And it took
Yes.
him 3 times, I think, to get through Navy SEAL boot camp. And he ran on broken legs. And he does ultra marathons now at 100 miles plus. So whenever I'm having that moment where I maybe feel a little sorry for myself or helpless, like I can't do it, those are my people.
I love
Yeah.
that.
That book,
Love that.
Viktor Frankl's book on meaning, where it's amazing when we see there's a bigger purpose, a bigger meaning in our lives, even if we don't always understand it, really helps us be more gritty and more determined and more
Yeah.
tenacious to get up every day and do what we do. That it really is a mindset kind of thing. Thank you for reminding me about Viktor Frankl's book. And of course, Goggins, everybody knows him, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
It's amazing.
he is
Incredible.
amazing. I wonder, as we're talking about this hiring piece, I know there's some issues of a franchisor and what role they can play in that, how much they can help, how much they can't help the franchisee. Um, can you tell us a little bit more about that and obviously how HireNetix make sure no confusion happens that way?
Yes. And in franchising, we have that three-legged stool that works so well of our franchisees, our franchisors, and our suppliers.
Mm-hmm.
And the smart franchisors leverage great suppliers to overcome things that they're not able to do internally. So where a franchisor can't tell the franchisee how to hire or how to manage their teams, great vendors can support them in that without crossing what would be considered a joint employer line. So it really gives them the ability to, it's a hack. You can life hack that, franchise support hack that by having a great vendor to come in and do that for you.
Brilliant.
So I really encourage
Wonderful.
franchisors, don't overlook this one of these top two issues of franchisees have. Don't overlook it because of joint employer. Don't just dismiss it like, oh, sorry, we can't help you. Like, this is a great hack.
Well, and
Mm.
it's interesting because my thought was around that by the franchisor making an introduction like this, they are helping that franchisee solve this hiring problem. But I think there's also a benefit to the franchisor in that they're proving themselves of value that I'm going to help. I can't personally do the hiring for you, but I'm going to make some introductions to folks that can help you with it. So it's taking a problem off the table right away, even in that franchise development process. Uh,
Exactly. Yes. And 46% of franchisees, according to Franchise Business Review's most recent survey, are concerned about this. And if you can make franchisees happy, you will sell more franchises and they'll have higher AUV because they like what they're doing and they want to help support the whole system to grow.
yeah, yeah.
So this is a tool that is used with franchisors as they make introductions to the franchisees. Uh, and is that because your target is more like the multi-unit? Or do you also go directly to the franchisee? And is this something that can actually go to corporate America?
Yes, absolutely. We can work with individual locations, we can work with large systems.
Cool.
And that's actually one area that a franchisor can really bring value to their franchisee because this type of technology for an individual business to acquire is minimum $1,000 a month. But within a
Mm,
franchise system, starts at $79 a month for a
wow,
location because of that buying power that we as franchisors promise that we bring to our franchisees. This is a great way to deliver on that promise.
that's amazing. That's wonderful.
Which goes back to responsible franchising,
Mhm.
right? Making things more affordable for our franchisees so they're not under those financial pressures, helping them have the right tools to make good hiring decisions, shortening that 15 hours down to, a
Mhm.
shorter period
Yeah.
of time, giving them some life back that they can spend with their wives and children or on their businesses. That's all, in my opinion, around that whole mission that you have and you've observed around responsible franchising. Um, it's a term that gets thrown out a lot, and I'm really pleased that you more clearly defined it. Did we miss anything when you think of message I want to get out is franchisors need to have responsible franchising. Did we miss anything that you would include in what responsible franchising is?
To me, responsible franchising is about thinking of those franchisees like they were your own kids or your own friends or your own, right? Somebody that you actually care whether or not they're happy. Because in franchising, yes, the franchisee needs to step up, needs to take responsibility. But my question to myself as I've been on the franchisor side is, have I done everything I can to help make this streamlined for this person? Have I kept up my end of the bargain? And I think if we're generous in that, the franchisees are generous back. It creates an energy of reciprocity.
How
Indeed.
nice. How nice. So, what is your goal for expansion, for scaling your product? Like, do you have an end goal in mind or a goal for the year or how many more franchisors you want to take on?
Yes, our goal is to be onboarding 12 great new franchisors this year. And we would like those franchisors to be 100 units or more so we can really make a big impact on the industry.
Wow.
Ooh, talk
Great.
about clear.
So it'd be
Yep.
basically 1,200 new franchisee units benefiting from our program.
I love that.
How do you see, talking about the future, how do you see hiring technology and hiring practices changing over the next few
Mm.
years?
One thing I absolutely love about Gen Z and like our younger generations is they're flipping the script a little bit. As corporate America for a long time has said, I have the power, you will do it my way. Fill out a 10-page Google form. I don't care. Everybody, you want me, right? Corporate America
Yeah,
has been saying that for a while. You need me. I can do whatever I want. And I can treat you however I want. And I love
Mm.
Gen Z. It's just like,
yeah,
no, I'm good. I'll live in a tent with my dog. I'm not playing your game. Like they're that serious about it. And it's giving all of us an opportunity to be better, to create a more equitable world.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it's definitely going to change hiring. It's going to change culture. It's going to change what we do to keep those really key employees that there's a win-win. The whole mindset is shifting around this hiring process, and you guys are 10 steps ahead in what you're doing to make it easier for our franchisees and our franchisors, especially since Gen Z is coming out. They're going to take over the world pretty soon, right? Um, so, do you have any advice
Mm.
to women in particular in franchising as leaders and how they would navigate growth or change or stepping into a leadership role? You were an employee, then you're literally, running a business for someone. That was a huge leap. What about other women that aren't as courageous as you or not raised like you were that says there's always a solution, there's always a way to do that? What advice or would you give to women that want to be you, but maybe didn't have your upbringing?
Yes, so we talked a little bit earlier about I don't know that I'd be where I am today without the challenges that I've encountered because I was raised, like many women my age, to be more of a traditional housewife. And my husband and I actually ended up having sort of a non traditional dynamic where the roles were a bit reversed. And I fought it at first, like, this is not how it's supposed to be. But then I realized, like, hey, if it's going to be, it's going to be up to me. So because of the goals that I had and wanting to create a great life for myself and my family, I just kept going, and that's really my advice to anyone who it wants to continue to grow and advance in franchising or any area of life, right? Just keep going. There's such great resources out there, wonderful books, wonderful mentors, but it's we attract that stuff to ourselves when we don't give up. And that's really been my world. Why I mentioned David Goggins, who ran on broken legs. When I listen to him talk about that, I don't feel so sorry for myself, like, oh, it's too hard, I can't
Mm.
do this. And I keep going. Or when I read Viktor Frankl in the concentration camp, and literally every vestige of his life was stripped from him, down to his wedding ring, down to his manuscript for his book, his family taken away from him and ending their lives. And for him to say that the last of human freedoms is the mind, like we get to decide what we're going to believe about that. That's really where my momentum has come from to get where I am today.
That is
Beautiful.
absolutely beautiful. Truly. Wow. I mean, and it's so interesting because I don't know what your faith is or your religious beliefs, but I really always feel that like when we do the right thing, like our rewards don't, like we expect that our rewards will come from other people, like, hey, good job, or somebody rewarding you, or a raise, or this or that. But a lot of times, and I see it so clearly in your case, like these quantum leaps are coming from blessings because you really stayed the course, like from start to finish, right? As an entrepreneur, younger, then stepping into the franchise world and just staying focused on what you believe in, which is so refreshing.
Thank you, Tracy. Yeah, I'm a huge believer in karma and that what I invest into things will eventually come back to me. Sometimes it takes a long time. I'll tell you, I had this situation where I've wanted to sing since I was a little girl, and I've had every obstacle to that. I'm not a natural voice. I'm not like that person where people are like, "Oh, you sing," and then they hear you and they're like, "Oh my gosh, that just like changed my world to hear your amazing voice." That is not me. I
Oh,
have had to work so hard for every little bit of progress there, but I had a person that I helped support in a band, and I sang with her, and she had um, just come to me one day and be like, "Listen, I don't know what's wrong with you, and I can't fix you. Like, you can't sing." And this is not the only time that happened. She's like, "You can't sing, and I'm sorry, but like, you're basically a hopeless case. And if you want to go home and cry about it, I totally understand because this is bad." Like she was just out of
oh
her
my
pain,
goodness.
just really, really not kind. And I just took a deep breath and I'm like, this is all going to work out for me eventually. And not that I would ever want this to happen to someone, but it was just within a couple of months that she quit doing the band. And then somebody asked me to do that, and I led it for 6 years because that out of that tough place, that pain, that energy, she couldn't continue on in it. And again, not anything against her, but just like things always work out in the end. Sometimes you have to be patient, but eventually they do.
Wait, are you saying that you ended up singing in the band? You ended up
Yes.
leading? Nice.
Yes, I was the lead singer for 6 years and had an
Wow.
amazing band. I had a cellist and a drummer and a
Oh my
keyboard and guitar and the
goodness.
whole thing, right? It was amazing. Yeah.
Oh my God, I want to
But
hear
like,
you.
had I in that moment believed her, and
Wow.
again, like I say, trying to be gracious, she was speaking out of her pain. We've all been there. But like, had I believed her and given up, I never would have had that experience. But the belief that, like, okay, ultimately things are going to work out, and there it was. And I could tell you so many stories like that.
Wow. Um, do you think that her saying that gave you even more passion and determination?
I think so. Yeah, there is a part of me that's a little ornery like that.
Yeah, I would be
It's
too.
like if you
Yep.
tell me I
You
can't do
can't
it, I'm
tell
gonna
me I can
do
do
it.
something or that.
I'm going to
Yeah.
prove you wrong.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell
Yeah.
you, like, she wasn't wrong. I had things to work on. So it did. It lit a fire in me. It helps me see myself better. And because humility is a big part of that. You can't just think happy thoughts. Like, humility and hard work are the core of actually making that progress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love seeing this part of you, this fighter part of you. Kind of
Oh,
fun.
I love we get to do this.
So we're coming up on the hour, so I want to make sure we don't forget to ask you, how do multi-unit franchisees or franchisors reach out to you and learn more about HireNetix?
I'm all over LinkedIn, so I always love to connect with people there. HireNetix.ai is a great way to connect. And of course, Dominique at HireNetix.ai is a great way to reach me as well.
Perfect. I really love that I got to know you on a more, because we've only known each other on a professional level all these years. So I have really enjoyed getting to see these other parts of you. And I really appreciate you being vulnerable and telling these stories. And this whole experience you had with the couple, that were struggling financially. And
Mm.
ultimately, the husband chose to end his life because of all the struggles, and how that really lit a fire. And you said, we got to be responsible as franchisors to do
Mhm.
what's right and best by them, as while we're doing what's right and best for the franchisor. And look where it's taken you. Look where it's taken you, where you're solving some really big problems that every franchisee has around the hiring things. So I'm very impressed with you. I've always been impressed with you. And now I love you even more. What can I say?
Oh, well, thank you, Rebecca. Likewise, I have always admired the success that you've built in the company and the respect. Like everybody's that I bring up your name to adores you in this industry. So yeah, I want to be you when I grow up.
Aw, what's not to adore? Everyone
Oh,
adores Rebecca.
sweet.
We
That's
love
so
you.
sweet. Tracy, I'm going to put it over to you for your ahas, your wrap up, your
I
thoughts.
just, Dominique, I think it's just like you being that little girl at the lemonade stand. What were you doing? You were turning lemons into lemonade. Like
Oh,
you've done that your whole life.
chills.
You've done that your whole life, with a smile on your face, no matter what anybody put in front of you. You're like, no, I'm still gonna make the lemonade. You want to take away my lemon? It's all right. I'm gonna find another lemon. I love that, and you made this analogy about the rising tide that lifts all boats. I don't know if it was pre-show or on the show, but you are the highest wave in that ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
I
Really are.
really appreciate that about you. And I also, one more thing, I love what you said about humility and hard work, because you really are a perfect combination of both. Beautiful, really. Everything that you're doing. I wish you a lot of luck with HireNetix. It's very cute name and it's a great concept.
Thank you, Tracy.
Yeah.
It's really been an honor to be here with you.
Yeah. Thank you, Dominique. And thank you to our listeners. Make sure to like, comment, share Dominique Main's interview today. And of course, we'll see you next week on another episode of the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged.